You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Good evening, guys. This is the Wrestling Epicenter. I am new host Brendon Brooks, along with
James Walsh. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Wrestling Epicenter. We are back and better than ever. This is James Walsh, joined as always now by Brendon Brooks and my one and only buddy, Brendon. What's your name again? Benya. There you go. Benya.
James, do we have to write that down? I mean, Benya pretty much owns this station now. It's the Benya block.
Yes,
Benya
he does the Cronkite Chronicles right before us. He has a 2-hour Benya block.
Every Wednesday, it's 2 hours of Ben Benya and nothing but Ben Benya, and that's pretty much what's cool. Unfortunately, I want to hand it off to you guys. You guys are just, you're the experts.
Yeah, he's a producer, mainly the producer, but still, he is. Well, we're not going to call him the Benya because, well, that'd be just a little bit odd.
Oh, whatever. We can call him whatever you'd like to call him. Anyway, just for our fans on the website, and the website, by the way, is www.wrestlingepicenter.com. Why don't you guys just introduce yourselves, give our fans a quick background on what's going on and who you are in terms of wrestling fans?
Well, I've been a wrestling fan ever since I saw, the Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior match when, back then when you see a wrestling match and you're a little kid, you're like, oh, this is the coolest match ever. Then, after seeing the Ultimate Warrior DVD, it's like, well, that match wasn't exactly the greatest. Though recently I'm more of an outsider because I took a break primarily because, going to school and that sort of thing. However, mainly it was because I saw the Triple H Kane segment where he was apparently having sex with a dead.
I'm screwing her brains out.
I think that was the line. I was like, and then I saw that and I was like, man, okay, come on, Vince, you went a little bit too low. I can handle a porn star, I can handle a pimp, I can handle Austin drinking beer. I love beer. However,
Vince McMahon just throws, he takes some darts, has an idea wall, and he'll throw it, one for wrestler, one for idea, and one for another wrestler. And he was like, Triple H, necrophilia, Kane. It's a must-see. Everyone must love it.
Must-see TV, I guess.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, not so much,
Yeah, that was probably the worst moment in the history of wrestling. For a while there in the Attitude Era, I'll be honest, I kind of went in and out, and I was kind of ashamed to admit that I was a wrestling fan. This is kind of post-Attitude Era, and I kind of stopped watching wrestling right after WCW was sold, and I started right after the whole necrophilia angle, and I can't tell you how happy I am to have missed that angle.
I thought David Arquette winning the WCW title back in the 90s was pretty low, but then when I saw that, I was like, okay, I need to turn this off, focus on something for a little while, and just take a break. And, I have kept in and out, I'm still familiar with what the story's going on, what's good, and what's actually working. But
right.
I still have more of an outsider perspective as well, in terms of Benya, who's been watching faithfully for the past, most of his life.
Well, I guess that's my cue, because if it were legitimate for me, I would have been watching since, I was born. I mean, even my parents really got me into wrestling, and I've enjoyed it ever since. One of the biggest things I can mark to that is that my parents' wedding anniversary, they forget count. How do they keep count? WrestleMania 22 is this March, or is it March or April this year?
It's probably between March and April.
And that's how they keep the anniversary. It'll be the 22nd anniversary next year.
Wow.
I have been watching ever since, as long as I can remember. Of course, Hogan and Warrior. Warrior was one of my favorites.
I got to be honest with you guys. When I watched that match as a kid, I just remember sitting at the top of my steps after Warrior got the pin and sobbing like a baby.
Oh, man.
You were
the biggest Hogan mark of all time.
Yes, me and Edge have a lot in common. If you watch the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, Edge says that he hated the Warrior after that. Well, I pretty much was the same.
He does a great impression of the Warriors, his little shoot interviews.
That was Christian, actually. That was and Edge. They both did it.
Every one of them, Christian, Y2J, they all do their impression of the Warrior. And, man, even though I didn't understand what the Warrior was saying when I was a little kid, and for that matter, I still understand what he's saying now, if he does talk.
Right.
Take that plane into a nosedive, and you will find yourself in parts unknown.
They probably said parts
unknown. Don't forget the snort.
I can't do the snort. If I do the snort, we're going to have a problem.
There you go. There was your snort right there. And then I have a cough, so that should bring a few more mucus bubbles up.
That's pleasant.
Tremendous. Well, guys, I just wanted to bring everybody on the forums at www.wrestlingepicenter.com up to speed on who Ben Benya and Brendon Brooks are. So I believe we're going to take a quick break and be right back, and we're going to review the Survivor Series. But before we go to break, I just want to remind everybody to stay tuned, because later on in this program, we're going to be joined by the one and only Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and we're even going to have a little bit of a debate about who's right, Brett or Shawn. So keep it locked right here to The Blaze, 1260 AM.
The Blaze 1260 AM is proud to bring you our first annual holiday toy drive, benefiting downtown urban community kids. DUCK provides a program for elementary through high school students in downtown Phoenix, giving them a safe place to stay after school. Every year they hold the DUCK Store, a place for the parents of these children to buy Christmas gifts for reasonable prices, with all the proceeds benefiting the program. We at The Blaze want to help out by accepting children's toys, books, and clothes at our open mic night. The event will be held Friday, December 9th at 7 p.m. at eJoy Cafe on 7th Street and Mill Avenue. Bring your donations and receive 10% off your food or drink purchase from eJoy Cafe. Then stick around for the live entertainment of our monthly open mic night. For more information on the Downtown Urban Community Kids program, visit www.duckkids.com. This toy drive is brought to you by eJoy Cafe, College Times, and your ASU campus station, The Blaze, 1260 AM.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Epicenter. This is Brendon Brooks. Right now we're going to discuss what happened last night at Survivor Series. Start with the first match. We have an old-school WCW title match. Mirror US, the TV title back in the day, the best of 7 series with Booker T and Chris Benoit.
Right, that was a fantastic feud back in WCW, and if you remember, they actually went 8 matches back then.
Yeah, back then. Now it's a best of 7 series, much like any other sporting event nowadays.
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah, that makes sense nowadays. But just throwing back to old school, how that fared out very, very well for the company, made a great name for Booker T and Benoit.
Yes, absolutely.
And hopefully the WWE can repeat that. So we had the first match last night.
And it was an incredibly fantastic match, too. I mean, it was old school wrestling. It was done with such precision. The two guys know each other so well. They put on an excellent performance, although I kind of don't know if that might have been the right thing to do, because you've got to look at it this way. You want an opening match to be fast-paced. If you know these guys, you know you're in for the long haul, and probably the final 2 or 3 minutes of the match will be fast-paced, not the first 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's purely psychological, whereas, you want your first match to be some sort of action in there, lasting less than 2 minutes, hopefully.
Well, I want to ask you guys this question, and this is my question. Do we really care as much as we did back in '98 about these two? Do we think that these guys have as much upside as they did back then? And do you think that seeing these two guys in a best-of-7 feud is even what we want or need to be seeing right now?
Chris Benoit's upside is, it's limitless, it seems. But at the same time, this is a guy whose contract is expiring soon. It's no secret. And a lot of people feel that he's going to stay with the company forever. He might not. He might seek his fortunes elsewhere. He got the world title once, and since then he has been buried on the card. Put in an angle with Orlando Jordan for the U.S. title, which, while humorous to see Orlando Jordan just job out in less than 30 seconds every time he could, because Orlando Jordan just really, I'm not sure if he ever deserved such a push that he got.
No.
Unfortunately, at the same time, you got to look at this in the case of Booker T.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the book just really hasn't had any momentum. Even the last time Booker T really looked good in a wrestling ring, really looked like his star was shining and he would rise, was at WrestleMania 19.
Back when he faced Triple H, yes, and many people feel that he probably should have won that match, but he didn't, of course.
Of course not. He didn't get a chance to even, I don't think he's ever been properly pushed at all. Never. Not once in his career has he really been brought to his full potential. But, maybe it just seems like, the company's just throwing back. Let's go back old school. Let's try to see if we can get a nostalgia-type act going. Like, every time Austin comes back, it's a nostalgia gimmick, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know if that they're going for that with this feud. I personally think Booker T had his run in WCW. Unfortunately, they made him too much of a Rock-esque character, and I think that kind of took away from Booker T's upside in the WWE, because people still look back and remember, this is the guy who tried to use the catchphrases like The Rock.
The bookend, yeah. We all remember that move, right, Benya?
The bookend, the rock bottom, doesn't sound really different. For Booker T's career to be successful, he's going to have to reach the level he did on the final Nitro. When he beat Scott Steiner, woohoo, Scott Steiner, Freakzilla, all that kind of stuff. We've seen how the mighty have fallen there. But Booker T really, if he's going to get a proper push, they can't do it the way that they're doing it either. I mean, you have his wife, his actual wife, coming to the ringside with him, but at the same time, you're trying to make him a heel. You can't do that to Booker T. Let him be himself, and he's hysterical, and the fans will get behind him for it.
Eventually.
I believe that could be the case. I believe Booker might be better off as a face, and maybe they can split him and Sharmell up in the future and maybe turn him face. But up next on the card was the match that was 1 week in the making, as Melina challenged Trish Stratus for the women's title.
James, you know my view on women's wrestling.
Well, what is your view on women's wrestling?
Honestly, it's like midget wrestling. It's only good for once in a while.
That's low.
That's low, yeah. I mean,
Literally.
all it is just, bra and panties. Hey, we've got girls, they look hot. Let's see if we can teach them a few wrestling moves, and then that's it,
Absolutely. Benya's father made a good point. You see women's bra and panties matches, but you don't see men's briefs or boxers matches.
You'd only see that on a Pride Day in San Francisco.
Actually, that's what started it, was the Briefs and Boxers match. I believe it was a tuxedo match between Howard Finkel and, correct me if I'm wrong, Harvey Whippleman on Raw. And they realized that the crowd really didn't want to see two scrawny, pale guys wrestling in red velvet and black velvet underwear. And to be honest, I didn't want to see that.
Ben, I forgot that a while back for good reason, because it's Finkel. The Fink. No.
Howard.
By the way, Mr. Benya, that is Dr. Harvey Whippleman to you.
Oh my, I've messed up.
Yeah,
but as for that match, Trish Stratus, women's wrestling really doesn't get the credit because they do a lot of these gimmick matches just for the crowd.
Right.
Trish Stratus is the best women's wrestler going today.
Oh,
and I would honestly go out of my way and say that only one women's wrestler ever topped her, and it was the Fabulous Moolah. But behind that, she has worked so hard for this company, and she's worked so hard to put on a good show. She makes everyone look good. This match had as many blown spots as Jackie Gata and Christy Hemme from last year. Yet at the same time, it was enjoyable because Trish Stratus hits all her high spots, makes it look good, and actually compels you to think, hey, she might lose her belt. She's had it for nearly a year now, and she hasn't lost it. That's a key stat right there.
Absolutely. Trish Stratus can do it all. She can be a babyface, she can be a heel. Anybody remember in front of Madison Square Garden just a few months ago when the entire crowd was chanting "Slut at Lita"? How Trish actually made that segment work. There was nobody else out there in the women's division who could have done that. I will go as far as to say she may be the modern-day Bret Hart of the women's division.
The modern-day Bret Hart. I'm going to have to agree. Because the schedule she works, the effort she puts in, everything is there.
And she came in. She didn't want to be a wrestler. She came in as a model. And she worked hard to get where she's at, and I give her all the credit in the world. She really has become a phenomenon in and of herself. Up next on the card was the last man standing match, not for the Intercontinental Championship, which it probably should have been, as Triple H defeated the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
As far as Ric Flair goes, yeah, he is kind of an older guy, but that guy is just the hard. I think, up to Bret Hart, he is like the hardest working, most addicted guy to wrestling ever. I mean, how old is he now?
He's 56 years old.
56. I mean, 56 in general. You shouldn't be wrestling like that, but he still managed to do that. I have so much respect for that man just because he still sacrifices himself for a good match. Of course, he does have his run-ins with the law, right, Benya?
Run-ins with the law. He turned himself in.
Turned himself in.
It may have been road rage, but you know what? He says it all the time. He's Ric Flair. He
can do that.
He's the man. He's a kiss-stealing, wheeling-dealing. Unfortunately, now we know in more ways than one in the wheel part of that, but behind the wheel.
More like a roadside choking. Cigar smoking.
We're giving him a new catchphrase here.
I don't know if he's going to be able to use that one, but...
Yeah, he might not be back.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty much...
I do think he'll be back. I think they're running that road right now. They're going to keep him off TV for a little while. What will they do with the Intercontinental Championship now that he was seemingly out of the picture?
I find it unfortunate because it seems like what they're setting up to do, and it's what becomes painfully obvious when with WWE's booking these days, which is, it looks like Trevor Murdoch. I mean, if you frequent the internet, if you go by what is the Vince Russo theory of wrestling, which is everyone has internet access 24 hours a day, and you can look at it that way, the WWE announced WWE Unlimited, which was originally just meant for Heat and Velocity. Since
we will discuss Heat Unlimited in ad nauseum in the next segment, by the way.
All right. I mean, it seems like Trevor Murdoch's going to be the one to get that push, and I don't understand that because that's burying the tag team division yet again.
Absolutely. Well, it was a fantastic match between Triple H and Ric Flair. I think these guys really delivered. I don't give Flair a lot of credit. My phrase with Ric Flair has always been, I respect him, I don't like him. That's always been the way it was. That's the way it was even with the interview. I respected the guy, even though he was a bit of a jerk to me, but I I don't like the guy personally or professionally, but I will give him credit. I always give the devil his due, and he worked his butt off in this match. And, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Even at 24 years old, I'm not going to cut my head the way Ric Flair did in this match. His blade job was pretty gruesome.
Yeah, that was actually quite gruesome, as I remember seeing on Sunday night. It's like I said, I don't know how he has that drive day in, day out to really continue to brutalize himself like that, but really I give him that much respect because he will take blade jobs like that.
Well, and his retaliation was even more priceless. Ric Flair has shed blood, and he shed blood. Look at him and Dusty Rhodes in the matches, steel cage death matches, when they were still allowed to be called that. I mean, you look at what Ric Flair's retaliation was. I kept count of this, because after the first couple times it happened, I thought it was an odd occurrence. Ric Flair, 8 times during this match, inflicted an offensive attack on Triple H's manhood. That, including the infamous twister move. That was the first one he did. Then he rammed him into the ring post a couple times. He actually just went down and punched him at one point. That was, he's reaffirming that whole dirtiest player in the game thing.
Can we say he's beating a dead horse?
Oh, my.
Well, that might throw off Triple H's plans of being in the cemetery next weekend.
That's true.
Oh, man. Well, up next on the card, we had the World Heavyweight title defense by John Cena as he defeated Kurt Angle. What'd you guys think?
Well, I'm just not a big fan of John Cena in general. I don't think he's just not either, just doesn't have it yet, as we saw him also on Raw the next day, and that was kind of the worst finish I've ever seen as far as a submission match goes. I mean, but as far as the match went fine. I mean, Kurt Angle, you have here one of the hardest, another hardworking guy in WWF. He probably should have the title right now, as I was discussing with Ben a while back that he needs to have the title so the heel, so John Cena can chase him instead of the other way around.
Historically speaking, heels draw more as a World Heavyweight Champion, and the face is always better as the chaser. Look at Sting and Hogan back in WCW. When Sting was chasing Hogan for the belt, it was really important. But when they tried to redo it and Hogan was trying to get the belt from Sting, people didn't seem to really care that much, and Sting's title reign only was a couple months because of that fact.
And boy, did they care. I mean, you're talking about when you bring up Sting and Hogan, and it reminds me simply of that Sting didn't wrestle for a year. He didn't do anything. He didn't speak. He just sat up there and watched, and the fans were compelled because you knew he was going after the world title belt from, at the time, the biggest heel in the industry.
And like baseball belts. Or baseball bats.
Baseball belt.
Baseball belts.
Baseball belts, yeah. All right, well, I thought this was a pretty decent match, though. A lot of people give Cena a bad knock, saying that he can't work. He did a lot of moves in this match. I think he's really improved in the ring. I think that we're facing a problem right now where John Cena is getting bad crowd reactions, and they need to figure out why and fix it, and they need to figure that out quickly.
Exactly. We saw on Sunday night, you had the Let's Go Angle chant. Basically, you had, as Ben Benya pointed out a while back, that you had the older crowd saying going for the angle, and you had the little girls who think John Cena's cute going for Cena. And it just seems that it's going to die that way because you can't have little girls backing your guy the entire time. You're world champion. It can't be just based upon a bunch of little kids.
I think what they may need to do with John Cena is do what they did that got him over originally, and that's have him be a little bit more edgy. Have him come out and cut the raps and say nasty things about people like the whole gay jokes, which personally I thought was stupid. But apparently the older crowd thought they were funny. So maybe that's something they should go more towards. Say, you're a homo or something like that, like he did towards the thing where even on SmackDown, the UPN network, they censored him quite a bit.
Now, this crowd reaction is reminiscent, ironically enough, of almost a decade ago. 1996 Survivor Series was in Madison Square Garden. I know, James, you were there.
I was there.
You had a seat, and so you can sympathize with the crowd reaction. Shawn Michaels coming off a WrestleMania. Remember this? WrestleMania, an Iron Man match against Bret Hart. He wins the world title.
Right.
And he carries it in the entire year. And the fans just eventually deteriorate and deteriorate. He's doing the same thing over and over again. He's not compelling them. And he loses. He drops the belt at Survivor Series to Sid. And it was a terrible attack on, Shawn Michaels' mentor, Jose Lothario. Right. And he hit him with the camera, and everyone thought Jose was going to die. And Sid pins him. And as soon as you see the three, you also see just thousands of fans lit up and cheering because Sid took the belt from the guy they were sick of seeing.
And that's kind of the thing that you got to be careful of with John Cena. What happens if you put him in New York City at that Big Apple in Madison Square Garden, my old hometown? What happens if they put you if they put Cena out there in front of the smartest crowd that wrestling has ever seen, will they cheer him, or will it be a complete embarrassment? And if it is a complete embarrassment, how do they cover that up?
My money's on complete embarrassment. I think you just shouldn't have the title anymore. Just give it up, give it to Angle, then we'll go moving on. Moving on to the Teddy Long versus Eric Bischoff.
Teddy Long hit Eric Bischoff with a shoe. That was the highlight of this match.
Yeah,
Wow.
if that's the highlight of that match, then
That shows me that the WWE guys are watching TNA because he stole that move from Conan.
I was more disappointed in that match, though, with the use of the Boogeyman. I mean, to be honest, the Boogeyman, everyone knows this is a really off-the-wall, silly gimmick.
much like GTV.
It's but it's funny, and you're kind of compelled to watch it because all of a sudden this reaction other superstars are having where they don't say anything, they just kind of walk away. They do that backwards Homer Simpson walk and are just totally stunned at what they're seeing. But this time the Boogeyman comes out. Eric Bischoff has to pretend like he's scared when, in fact, all of a sudden we realize the Boogeyman is not nearly 6'8", and Bischoff was only about 5 inches smaller than him. He executes a pump handle slam, which was cool when it's done really fast, and it was cool when it was done 10 years ago.
Right.
Not so much
by
now.
Farouk.
And that's how we're supposed to remember this guy?
I don't know. I personally like seeing the Boogeyman out there. I've always been curious of how he keeps saying, I'm going to get you, but he never actually hit anybody.
Well, that's the best part about the gimmick. It's never going to happen.
Right,
He
right.
hits himself more often than he hits anyone else. It's great.
Yeah, it's a
Great
great
television.
gimmick. We'll see what happens on SmackDown when they continue this character, what they do with it. It'll be interesting to see if the crowd reacts to him as a wrestler, as a backstage promo cutter. I'll tell you what, I think he's funny as hell. I love the little songs he sings. I think it's a great gimmick for him to have.
Yeah. And now moving on to the Elimination Chamber match.
Or the elimination,
Elimination
old
match.
school Survivor
style.
Series
Old
rules.
school style, as we used to have back in the day.
The original old school, the actual
original
5-on-5.
5-on-5.
I love how every year they say it's old school and it changes from 5-on-5 to 4-on-4.
4, 5
whatever.
Since 01, it has been since 2000, it's been changing like that. Except in 2002, it was the original chamber match. There was no elimination contest.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this was a great contest, and it was Raw versus SmackDown, and you had to choose your brand. And the audience was kind of riding the fence. It's kind of interesting to see how you had heels and faces on both sides of the fence, and the crowd would kind of change along brand lines, who they were aligned with. It was really interesting to see psychology-wise to see what the crowd would do. I liked it, but there's a couple things in here that we got to discuss. And that is, first of all, the way that they eliminated the up-and-coming star Bobby Lashley.
Bobby Lashley, who is WWE's homegrown Goldberg, had no place in that match.
Absolutely not.
How does a guy like Ken Kennedy, who is one of the most entertaining performers on the SmackDown roster and in the WWE right now, not get booked in his place? If you're going to build Lashley as a monster, you don't eliminate him first. You don't even put him in the match so as to have any possible occurrence of him looking bad. It's just a bad idea.
In the past, when they wanted to eliminate a guy that they didn't want to get beat, like a Hogan, like a Hacksaw Jim Duggan, like anybody of that ilk, if they wanted to eliminate somebody without them getting pinned, they would have them get disqualified. And they make it that way by having them be a monster. I don't think doing Lashley this way, by having getting pinned by a chokeslam off the ring apron, mind you, not even in the ring, a guy was standing on the ring apron and give him a finishing move. I don't know. I think it was kind of weak. I think it kind of kills his momentum. I think he's going to lose a lot of steam in the coming weeks.
I have to agree with that, but I don't think he'll lose that much steam as much as you fear that he would. It's just kind of an oops, let's not have this happen again. Then after that, continuing his winning streak, or just continue pumping him as the next big thing.
Maybe don't even acknowledge that it happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's probably what they're going to do. You brought up, have them be the monster. And this is, again, the baffling WWE booking. Because the two men he dominated in that match were Carlito, who almost never seems to win a match on Raw. If you haven't noticed.
He doesn't have a finishing move.
the CCC, which eventually never even occurred, and Chris Masters, who is not getting booked in the main event of Raw the following night. They're not going to let Chris Masters lose. He's a modern-day Lex Luger.
Right.
Oh, that's not necessarily a good thing from what we're seeing on Raw on Monday.
Right. Masters' girlfriends, please beware.
Yeah, exactly.
Pardon me. Had to throw that little dig out there. And then, of course, Batista got eliminated as well by a double chokeslam from Kane and the Big Show. I'm not sure that beating the world champion was a good thing to do, but then again, everybody got beaten in this match, so I'm not sure that anybody's really that damaged.
I mean, the way they did it was, it seems right. It's not like Rey Mysterio pinned him. It's just kind of like the two biggest guys, take him out, take down another big guy. It just makes sense the way they did it.
Speaking of Rey Mysterio pinning somebody, Rey Mysterio pinned the Big Show, which led to our last segment for tonight, which will be the last night's SmackDown taping. We'll discuss that later. What did you guys think, though, of the show overall?
It's either one you loved it or hated it, and I was just, for once, I'm actually in the middle on that one. It was okay, don't like the women's wrestling, but as far as the last match went fine. Yes,
and it was good to see The Undertaker make his return. I think everybody loved that.
Well, I'm going to have to say, watching The Undertaker beat up Team Velocity and not Team SmackDown was kind of compelling, but at the same time, The Undertaker, how many times can this guy return from the dead? How many times can you keep rehashing this? And it seems like now it's become every year at either Survivor Series or the Royal Rumble he does it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you do with a character like that. He's kind of a part-time wrestler at this point in time. He's kind of a guy that you can put in there that will get the biggest pop of the night, but he's not somebody that you're going to put the World Heavyweight Championship on. I don't think that's a good role for him to be on. Before we close out with this segment, just want to cover two talking segments that went on in this discussion or this broadcast of WWE Survivor Series, and those two segments were, first of all, Edge coming out to the ring and announcing The Cutting Edge with Lita, being a new talk show that will take place on Raw.
This contributed. It was funny. It was very humorous. It was the hometown guy you brought in with the whole Dimitri Young thing. You've got him, the Detroit Tigers, obviously in the Joe Louis Arena, where they're very passionate about their Red Wings, as we learned on pay-per-view.
What did you think when he called him Mark Henry?
Oh, when he called him Mark Henry. with all the rumors that Mark Henry's going to come back, I think that might have officially killed it right there. Because
Mark Henry's contract is up, I believe, in January, so I don't think you're going to see him again.
I hope not, even though Henry's done everything for the company. But as for the cutting edge piece, I found it interesting that you promote something on your pay-per-view where you have your largest audience to happen the next night. And then the following day on WWE.com you say, we're going to have Triple H as our guest. And they promote it all day, and you promoted it that night. That was really the only point of putting Edge out there, was to say that we're going to keep him on TV while he's hurt. So you can still see him and hate him, whatever. And did we get the cutting edge?
Nope, we did not. Yeah, so I don't know what that was all for. It's good to see Edge staying on TV. For those who don't know, he suffered a pec injury, and that kind of kept him off TV for a little while. And the last thing that we're going to discuss with Survivor Series before we close out and head off to Raw was Vince McMahon's backstage segment with John Cena when he said, and I hope I don't get censored here, the words "my nigga," that's N-I-G-G-A, for those of you scoring at home.
Totally out of taste. Completely.
You can't do that. You can't expect the wrestling audience to be that stupid. I understand Vince has been going with this whole, he's the owner, but he's kind of not in the loop on everything, even when he wants to be. It's not right to do that. It was meant to be funny. I can understand where it was supposed to be funny, but it's wrong. It's racist. It takes slander and it puts it in. And for that, Vince should basically fine himself if it were possible.
I gotta be honest with you. I thought it was funny. I thought it was well done. I mean, you had Booker T standing in the corner, so there's a black guy. So if you're gonna
that makes it okay if there's a black guy around and he's approving, like, yes, you can say the N-word and get away with it. No, it doesn't work that way in real life. I say that word out in public, I'm going to wind up in a trash can or have 4 or 5 black dudes around me who want to pretty much beat the crap out of me.
I'm a pretty little white guy, so I make it a point not to say that word at all. Vince is the owner of a billion-dollar company. I have to assume that backstage he was like, Booker, would you mind if I say that? Ho, ho, ho. But I don't think, I really don't. I don't think Booker or anybody else would have a problem with it. I think it was kind of humorous. I actually enjoyed it.
It sounded good on paper, but didn't exactly execute very well. Well, we'll transition that to a break right now. Up next, we'll talk about what happened on Raw last night. And then later on, we'll have a segment with the HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
Keep it locked right here to the Blaze, 1260 AM.
God, I can't stand the radio! It's the sound that makes me punch
Hey, just because you're sick of hearing the same old music doesn't mean you should abuse babies. Instead, listen to Wrapped in Plastic. I'm Matt, and every Tuesday from 10 p.m. to midnight, I spin only the best new music. Here, Matt reads the charts, music news, and the worst song of the week, as well as the best new music around. Only on Blaze 1260 AM. Unfortunately, no real babies were punched in the making of this promo.
Need something to do Wednesday nights? Late night?
I like where this is going. Giggity, giggity, giggity.
No, not like that. Make sure you check out the Peanut Gallery. Wednesday nights, 10:45 to midnight. Exclusively on the Blaze. 1260 AM. 10:45 to midnight.
Open mic night. Open at E-Joy Cafe. C-A-Fe. C Cafe, Cafe, C Cafe, C.
What are you doing?
I don't know.
Open mic night every second Friday of the month at E-Joy Cafe. Registration is at 6:30 p.m. and the show starts at 7. E-Joy Cafe is located on the southeast corner at 7th and Mill.
C-A-Fe.
Did you know that you don't even have to leave campus to take care of all your music and movie needs? Say what? Hoodlums Music is your on-campus record store. Hoodlums Music and DVD is an independently owned store located in the basement of the Memorial Union, and we carry a large selection of new and used CDs and DVDs, as well as vinyl, posters, and other entertainment accessories. Stop down after class and listen to one of our 90 different listening stations, or chat with one of our friendly hoodlums. Yeah. Or you can just trade in your used CDs and DVDs. Call 727-USED or visit hoodlumsmusic.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Epicenter here on the Blaze, 1260 AM. It's James Walsh, joined as always by Brendon Brooks and Benya sitting behind the glass. How you guys doing? Good to be on the air. We're going to discuss WWE Raw right now, which emanated last night, I believe, from Cleveland, Ohio.
Well, considering last night was Tuesday, but...
Oh, 2 nights ago from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm sorry.
Too much to drink last night there, kid?
No. I was watching SmackDown last night. I was being a good boy.
Yeah, it's not me, though.
Well, that's a shame.
Yes.
Well, last night, the opening segment, 2 nights ago, I should say, there I go again, was Eric Bischoff coming out and calling out every member of the Raw roster, and evidently, Vince McMahon one-upped him, told him, you don't have to come out, and now it looks like there's going to be a battle for the GM position between Shane McMahon and Eric Bischoff.
You know, I've always enjoyed Shane's presence on TV. I think he's good with the mic skills. He's actually one of the few guys who really sacrifices his body out there.
Right, absolutely.
What does it say about the company when Shane McMahon is putting on better matches than more than half the talent out there? Anytime Shane's on, I want to watch because I know he's going to do something exciting. He could be the highlight of the night right there.
I've made this call several times, and I'll say it again. If I had all that money in the bank, I would not be setting myself on fire or jumping off of a Titantron.
But that's why we love Shane so much, is because he's willing to do that. He's willing to sacrifice mind, body, and soul for this company. Whereas, Eric Bischoff, I've always just kind of had this weird view of this. He's trying to, first he was competing with McMahon, now he's trying too much to be McMahon. You can't do that. Let the McMahons take care of being McMahons. That's all I'm saying.
I think the allure of Eric Bischoff came the first time we saw him on WWE TV, because he for so long was the competition for Vince. And then 3 years later, we're kind of used to seeing him. It's not quite as big of a shock every time we see him. He's on every single week. He's kind of been put through the ringer by everybody. I mean, Steve Austin threw him through pig crap, if I'm not mistaken. So the guy's been through it all. We've kind of seen him embarrassed. He never really seems to get the one-up on anybody. And maybe that will be a good way for him to finally step out of the picture, and who knows, maybe I'll keep my jollies close to me, and maybe they'll fire him, and he'll get the itch to create a new company.
Maybe we'll take a break. But anyways, moving on to the Shawn Michaels versus Carlito, who by far still doesn't really have any finishers or anything like that. He just talks funny.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Carlito character, and I think he's phenomenal in the ring. The thing is, the guy needs to beat somebody, and he needs to beat somebody of importance. Even when he was Intercontinental Champion, the only way he ever won a match was by holding the ropes. So, I mean, the guy really doesn't even have a finishing move. I guess it's supposed to be a DDT, but can a move be considered a finisher if everybody kicks out of it?
Not really. Maybe it's part of the gimmick, It's sort of a joke in a way. Have a crap move, and then, hey, kick out of it. But still, I mean, he just needs to be worked on a bit more. But as far as, HBK going out there and doing his thing.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels got out there, put on a great match. Shawn Michaels, for those of you who just tuned in, will join us just a little bit later on in the program. It was a phenomenal match to see Shawn Michaels out there. They put on a good match. I have to ask you this question, Mr. Benya. Do you think Michaels nipping up and the knee injury, do you think that was legit or a work?
That was a work.
You're convinced?
That was a work. Shawn Michaels has done that move thousands of times. He's not Kevin Nash here. We're not talking about somebody who walks into the living room to get a hunk of cheese, and all of a sudden his arm is broken, his shoulder is separated, and apparently he has 3 concussions. I don't know where that comes from.
You know, in all my time of hearing of foreign objects, I don't think cheese was one of them that would take out a wrestler, much less me.
Absolutely. I remember when watching that at home when Kevin Nash walked across the ring and literally just fell, and nobody knew what happened to him, and apparently he broke his leg.
I'm not even sure Kevin Nash knew what happened in that segment.
Yeah.
But then after that, HBK taking the victory over Carlito. The next match after that, Kurt Angle versus Widow Maria. How could you get mad at Maria? She's so cute.
She's such a
Look
cute...
at that. I mean, she's so bubbly. I mean, that's part of her gimmick, just being this bubbly little blonde girl. But still, Kurt Angle, for shame. For shame.
Yeah, well, that's getting the desired reaction out of you.
That's like kicking a puppy.
If that's the best we can do to try and get the crowd to turn against Kurt Angle, we're not doing a very good job.
No, we're not. Exactly.
Well, I mean, they need to reach very far to try to turn a guy heel. Even when they turned Randy Orton heel just a few months ago, they had him do the same thing, beat up a girl. I'm not sure that still works these days because we've kind of...
Yeah, Steve Austin kind of already wrote the book on that, and that was a little too scary.
Ever since the women started wrestling with the men, and I'm referring, of course, to Joni Laurer, China.
China, yeah.
I mean, that was the big one. People seem to think that the women can hold their own, and even with women wrestling with men in a contest, and somehow the man always loses because someone interferes.
Or they go for the groin.
Right.
Or they go for the groin, yeah. One asset the women don't have to worry about in that kind of a match. But at the same time, we're rehashing stuff again. How can we keep doing this and expect it to work?
Well, I mean, at this point, they've done so much. What's left to be done?
I don't know. I mean, look at the next match. Trish Stratus once again carrying the entire match on her, basically on her, every single portion of her body was carrying that match. The next one.
Right. It was Mickie James, Trish Stratus, and who was even on their team? Michelle.
Candice Michelle.
Well, no, I don't think
that they defeated Candice. I mean, because like what I said,
that would be Ashley Masario was on.
Once a women's wrestling match turns on, I go and get a drink.
Yeah,
that's always been my. I just don't know why I don't like it so much. Just kind of, it just doesn't excite me, you know.
Well, I mean, let me ask you this: do you find them attractive?
Oh, of course I find them attractive, man. That's easy. But is it like fun to watch women kick the crap out of each other? No, I want to see them loving each other. I want to see them hugging.
Well, my theory on that was always to be women are best used like wearing skimpy shirts and having them roll around the ring in a cat fight, and you're going to see somebody's thong. Yippee! I thought that would be the better way to use them instead of actually having them get in the ring and have full-blown wrestling matches.
Hey, now, I got to be honest, I like the way that they're setting this up. I mean, all of these matches seem to be leading to Trish Stratus and Mickie James, with Trish eventually losing the title to Mickie. It seems like their typical thing that they've done, except that this time they're trying to make Mickie James look like, she's just Trish's biggest fan. She just loves Trish, and I love that about her because it's great to watch her. She's got such energy. She brings to what the women, the acting element that they don't have. They're not able to carry it as well. There's only a select few of them. Women like Trish Stratus, women like Victoria is another one.
Victoria, who was on the opposing team. The teams for this match were Trish Stratus, Mickie James, and Ashley against Candice Michelle, the returning Tori Wilson, and Victoria.
And for that, Victoria, who everyone notices the knee brace she wears to the ring, she's been wearing that for about 3 years now. She has been, busting her butt every day for that company, just as Trish Stratus has. And these two women also have the best mic skills of their women. Has anyone noticed that when Lita gets on the mic, in the rare occasion that she does wrestle, she's not that great.
No, she's not.
She can't work a crowd. The only way she does it is the fact that she's Edge's arm candy, and that's just really kind of...
It gets old after a while, but what could women do to make it seem more entertaining than just, bra and panties match? Yay.
Well, I don't know what they can do. I think Trish Stratus actually brings me into a women's match more so than, say, Candice Michelle. I've sat in a bus with Candice Michelle, and I can tell you, she ain't no wrestler. She's maybe half my size, and I'm not a big guy.
Exactly. But Maybe we'll ask Francine that next week when she's going to be on the show.
Yes, the Queen of Extreme Francine is still with the program. She'll be back with us hopefully next week. She's down in Tampa, Florida, hanging out with Missy Hyatt. Check them out at www.missyhyattandfrancine.tv.com.
In the next match, we had Trevor Murdoch versus the overly underused Shelton Benjamin.
Yes, this was a pretty decent match to see Shelton on the show and also to see Trevor Murdoch. What I have to ask you guys is, when exactly did they split Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch up? I did not know what happened.
Must have been when they lost the title for only about the 4th time. When they decided that the tag team titles weren't worth keeping.
I mean, the tag titles rarely ever got on TV. I remember when Rosie and the Hurricane held the belts, they barely ever even brought them on the screen. And, I mean, that's unfortunate. Tag team division in the Raw, on the Raw brand, is pretty much a moot point. It's pretty much dead.
Just Kane and Big Show, which is an awesome team. I mean, you've got big titans of the guys, still, like usual, carrying the entire tag team division because it's just them on their shoulders.
Unfortunately, they don't have anybody to work with.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you don't really have the Dudley Boys anymore. You don't have the Hardys. You don't have Edge and Christian as they used to tag it because I guess they kind of moved on with that. But I mean, it's just sad to see the tag title, something that we'd always loved seeing. I always loved seeing as a kid seeing a tag match. But
if you remember when you were a kid and you were watching tag matches, how did you know who was on whose side?
Basically, they wore the same colors.
Yeah, they wore the same colors or they wore the same outfits. Nowadays, Kane and Big Show, they don't look like a tag team. They're just two guys that are put together. And, that was what I liked about Trevor Murdoch and Lance Cade. They were two big guys.
They were a Southern Beverly Brothers.
Yes, but
except they didn't have a Southern genius with them.
Unfortunately. Only if they had a Southern genius with them, then maybe we can move on. And the final match of the night, John Cena, Chris Masters, and Kurt Angle in a submission triple threat match. Good idea? Bad idea?
You put Chris Masters in any match, I think it's a bad idea.
Exactly.
I'm going to take the opposite point of view on this, and I'm not doing it just to be a contrarian. I've actually not been that tough on Chris Masters. I think the guy works hard out there, and I mean, he is over with what he does. I think that they should not have dropped the whole Master Lock challenge as they kept doing because nobody broke it. And if nobody breaks it, where do you go? I mean, as of right now, every time he applies it in the matches, they have to find a way to break it without the wrestler breaking it because
can't break it.
Nobody can be the first person to break it.
But the ending was the worst sell of an ST. I mean, just an STS I've ever seen in my entire life. You see the look on his face, he's like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, I'm so surprised.
I'm so surprised that I'm in this position, and it's amazing.
I'm someone to criticize John Cena for overacting when he's selling pain, and he does to his credit. But you know what? After what I saw, oh my God. Just keep going with it.
I'm so shocked, I'll tap out.
Yeah, I'm so shocked that he actually did a submission move in order to end this match. The setup was nice, chair the knee, yada yada, that was cool. But then, just the execution of it was not so great. Anyways, we're going to take a break right now, guys. Up next, we'll be having the HBK interview, Mr. Shawn Michaels.
Absolutely. I got a chance to sit down with Shawn Michaels just about 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, that was right before Eddie Guerrero passed away. So for those of you tuning in hoping that he's going to talk about Eddie Guerrero, unfortunately, we did not get to that subject. Be sure to check out Shawn Michaels' book, out in stores now, and keep it locked right here for the one and only showstopper main event, the icon, Shawn Michaels, here on The Blaze, 1260 AM.
This is Bret the Hitman Hart, and you're listening to the interactive interview. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please welcome the showstopper, the headliner, the main event, the icon, the one and only Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Shawn, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. So we see you got your book coming out. It's coming out, I believe, November 22nd. Tell us a little bit about writing this book and the experiences you had. And tell us a little bit about the person that wrote it with you. I believe his name was Aaron. And explain how it was to try and convey some of your stories to him and how close you guys had to work together to get this book hammered out. Well, we definitely, I brought him down to San Antonio, and he stayed for a number of days, and because I just thought that was the only way we were going to be able to knock this thing out. He's a great guy. He really tried to get in and try to understand how and why it was that I struggled so much in my career when things were going so well, and to try to get behind why I was so controversial, and and asked me a lot of questions about some of the stories that were out there. So we worked real close with one another. I think he was very passionate and really into trying to help me convey certainly my side, I guess, of not only just my life, but my career in the wrestling business, because it has been so up and down. And I think from a lot of people's perspective, I've enjoyed a fair amount of success, and I think they would be surprised that it wasn't that easy. And so it was a real joy working with Aaron. He was a great guy and helped me out a great deal.
Excellent. Well,
a little insight on some of the stories, perhaps, that you've placed into this book, or at least give us one that was perhaps your favorite. Well, I think it may not be my favorite, but I think one of the biggest things is obviously the story of Hart and myself. He and I had a very rocky relationship, and I've in all the years I never really gave my side of it, my perspective on that, and I've done that in this book. Bret Hart probably may not be thrilled about it. He may not agree with it. Fans of his may not agree with it or be or enjoy it. Doesn't make it any less true.
Right.
And, and to understand that these types of things go on. When you have two guys working for a top position, competition, and gets up, and it certainly did in this case. And how I tried to use that and how I tried to use the controversy that was swirling around me for my career, and use that to help my character from a TV perspective. And it was pretty ironic that that the way I was behind the scenes.
Well, let me ask you this question. I was at WWE Raw in June, and a guy behind me, when you came out, started chanting the ever popular "You screwed Brett" chant, and I turned and I said, "Look, dude, it was 8 years ago. Get over it." Do you believe? Do you follow me with that? I mean, do you kind of echo those sentiments?
Yeah, I do, but I got to tell you, wrestling fans don't get over that, and you know what? Wrestling fans won't get over it if the individuals don't get over it. Brett continues to, he continues to relive that one day for the rest of his life, and that's unfortunate. But I don't know. I mean, I have so many, and that was the thing also. Look, to be just that. I mean, I've had what I consider to be an amazing life. And that was just one aspect of it. But it was one of those things you have to put it in there because it was so big within the industry. So I had to put that story in there. But there are countless other stories. And obviously for me, the greatest and best one is meeting my wife and my salvation. You know what I mean? And the fact that that my life has been completely turned around by that.
Absolutely.
So that to me is the end all be all, the best story, and and it ending at WrestleMania 21, and me being back, and as good as I ever was, before the back injury, and so that no matter how bad things get, it isn't over, and you keep struggling, you keep hanging on. There is hope, and even for like me. So I hope that's what people will take from us when they finish this book.
Well, over the course of your career, you've had your fair share of critics. Some have questioned maybe your work ethic, your motives, any backstage politics. Do you feel that you've answered any critics in your book,
Or do you feel that you've answered them in other ways? An example I always point to is the Taboo Tuesday in November 2004, where you came out on one leg, worked a match for the fans and only for the fans. Do you feel at this point in time that you've really managed to silence any critics and really prove, the kind of moxie that Shawn Michaels has?
Since my return, I mean, I think I have, because I've also tried not to, prior to my comeback, that's the thing that I do. I take full responsibility for, all the things that I did in the past and how I used to, if a story would come out or if I heard people were saying one thing, I would throw gasoline on that fire. Really make it work. But I did that by design. I did that purposely. And now, I've grown up, and again, let's see, back then it was all about me, and now, I enjoy it. I don't compete with anybody. I go out there and I tell my best. These are different. I don't think anything I do. I've earned the right, really, to if I want to make a certain decision that other people may not agree with. I've got 21 years of experience at this, and it's like I try to mother. I'm everything under the sun. Right? And Mom, can I at least be the one person in the family that knows about wrestling? That's and that's the thing. After 20 years, anybody else, after the match, person in this business who can tell me, and I don't mean that from now. It's just I've got to have a pretty good handle on what's going on in this line of work to create the success that I've created in this. So I'd like to at least have that people wouldn't argue. And again, I'm just confident in that, and if people want me, I'm fine with that too. And those things sort of just roll my back now. They don't bother me like they used to.
Well, let me ask you this. Leading into WrestleMania 12, they showed a lot of videos, and of course, Vince McMahon's quote from the end of that match is, "Finally, the boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels." Was that legitimately your boyhood dream?
You know what? It was Aaron and I wrote. Look, he thought about how the dreams changed. There's always the boyhood dream at 12 was to just be a wrestler. And there's always that off deal, but everybody, you don't ever want to be just the guy that gets out of it. You be the guy that's standing in the middle of the ring with the belt and the fans cheering for him. But that just didn't. So that was the dream, but it just didn't seem realistic. And so when I first got in, and first was, looking to try to do this, I just wanted to be able to get in. And just sort of changed to wanting to, to be a guy that could make a living. And so the dreams sort of changed, but far off in the distance. The dream was to be the world champion, but it just didn't seem realistic.
Well, you mentioned the changes in your life.
I'm a long talk.
Okay, well, the question I have for you is, obviously you talked about the changes in your life and your salvation, and you really made a big change to the wrestling business when you kind of introduced us to the Attitude Era with D-Generation X. Looking back, and I know I've talked about Vince Russo, who also claims to, well, he also has found salvation. He says that kind of he looks back at that and maybe has a couple of regrets. Do you have any regrets on anything you've done in the WWE?
Well, I can't have any regrets because I think if you take out something, I may not be where I am. I don't think you can live that way. That's why when people say, "Would you do the X stuff again? Will you ever bring him back?" No, I wouldn't. I'm thrilled to be a part of innovative and groundbreaking things in the wrestling business. But I don't understand why that doesn't mean I couldn't change and I wouldn't want to do it again. I can't help it. I'm 40 years old. I'm a grown man. I'm a father, and now and I can sit there and say I don't think I should do that kind of stuff on TV. No, but you did it back then. I know I did, and I can look at you and say, I guess it was wrong. I would have never looked at one of a parent back then and said, you're taking us too seriously. Take it easy. I would respect their right to be a parent. So people can change, and you can look back and go, yeah, geez, I made a ton of mistakes, and I did. And and I admit them, and I take responsibility for them. But I can't change them, you know. And I think that's the realistic way to look at it. Life, never struggled, and been a good person the entire time, you know. But it's my understanding only one guy did that, and that's why to him. And I made a ton of mistakes, make more. I'm certainly doing my best. I think that's the best I can do.
All right, last question we got for you. After writing this book and looking at all those experiences you've had over your career, do you feel like maybe you might have gained a little more insight into the man that Shawn Michaels is and the man Shawn Michaels has become?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I think this sure to me, you know, more than any in the world. And it has me a bunch. I've grown from it. I enjoyed it. I wasn't sure about doing it. It was a little uncomfortable letting people in on some of the inside things and then some of the struggles that I had. But, you know, I mean, it's a very liberating and very freeing. I did it, and like everything, like wrestling matches and with life, you know, you do it to the best of your ability, and you hope that maybe some folks will be impacted by it. Some folks won't like it. That's the way, you know, things go. But I'm very proud of the thing.
All right. Well, that's all the questions we had for you. We appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us today.
All right. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you. And one little note, if I can pass this along to Shawn. We actually have Marty Jannetty writing for our website, and he just wanted to say hi.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah. He works for our forums. He just participates.
Very cool. That's good. I got to give him a call. He called me after the 30-minute Iron Man match on Raw. Kurt and I had it. He called me after that, so I'm glad he's getting some work out there.
All right, man. Thanks a lot, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, guys. All right, take care, guys.
Take it easy.
Available now in the archives at WrestlingEpicenter.com, it's our exclusive one-on-one interview with Mike Bucci, better known as Simon Dean and Supernova from ECW.
I mean, you guys remember, I started off as a goofy superhero with blue paint on my face, and I went all the way. You first, and then you won the moment. Yeah, running around with a cape, but people saw me grow, you know, being the innovator and the moves and having good matches and teaming with Chetty, all that, and then eventually winding up, you know, super shredded, lean, leather pants, long hair, the whole deal. I mean, I changed with them, and they saw it. So people, you can't, ultimately, wrestling fans, that's what I always loved about them, they're the ones that are going to decide what they like and what they don't like. You can tell them what they're supposed to like, but they're going to stick their finger up, and they're going to turn their channel on their TV, and then you're going to draw low ratings.
This incredible two-part interview, recorded back in 2009, features the rise and fall of ECW as well as his time as a WWE suit. Check it out right now at WrestlingEpicenter.com or InteractiveWrestlingRadio.com.
Guys, I gotta tell you, sitting down and talking to Shawn Michaels, I heard a real honesty in his voice, and it kind of made me switch sides a little bit on the whole Brett versus Shawn argument.
Well, they say that age kind of, as you get older, you get a bit more wiser in your years, and maybe the brash and charismatic HBKs finally kind of get older and wiser and seeing the whole big picture of it. But as far as the whole Montreal Screwjob thing, I'm kind of like just, I would say, in the middle of it, because at one point in time, if you're in the company and the boss tells you to lay down, you lay down.
Right.
And if you go against that, you know, he deserved to have what happened to him. Well, what happened was pretty, I don't know, just, it was disgraceful for Brett, but at the same time, it really, really got the internet going. And
yes, well, that is the thing, and we were discussing this in the break room. That is the thing that really ignited the internet to the wrestling audience. That is the thing that kind of took the inside of the business and put it out in the forefront. And that's why we now see Vince McMahon the character instead of Vince McMahon the guy calling color commentary. Now, I mentioned in the interview that I was sitting behind a guy that was chanting, "You screwed Brett" at Shawn Michaels, and I told him, get over it. And you know what? I kind of stand by that, and I think my producer, Benya, kind of disagrees with me on that.
That one incident set Brett's life in a spiral. And I can't say that it jinxed the Hart family forever, but it hurt him. I mean, you look at the fact that Bret Hart is a guy who says, and I've got the support from the newly released Bret Hart DVD. You hear Bret's testimonials, you hear him in Wrestling with Shadows, any of that kind of stuff. Bret will say he worked 320, 340 days out of his year. He's not kidding, folks. He means it. He was there every card, just working his tail off to make sure that they had a good product they could see. His matches weren't 5-minute matches every time
He
he was
never
on.
phoned home a performance. Never.
You knew that he was going to be on. When you saw Bret, you knew you were going to get at least 15 minutes of real technical wrestling. No crap, no hardcore stuff. Bret Hart could fight you any way you wanted to fight him back. He was able to modify his style. And the fact that people say get over it is a damn shame.
Well, why is it a damn shame? Why shouldn't we get over it 8 years later?
Because Bret the Hitman Hart is still right up with his moniker. He is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. No one's ever going to have that claim again because no one can. What Shawn Michaels was in on that whole thing. He admitted it on WWE Confidential. He admitted it on several other occasions.
He admitted it in his book.
Well, yeah. Well, he made
a great read, by the way. Everybody should pick that up.
Michaels may feel remorse now, but that doesn't mean that it's water under the bridge. Bret doesn't regret what he's done, so frankly, no one should forget about what happened. Bret made the right move for Bret because the company who gave him, he even says that he was the go-to guy. When they were grooming someone for the belt, he was the one they put the belt on because it was just easier. He was always going to be there. He was always going to be their guy. He was WWE, then WWF, faithful.
Yes,
and
he was. He was
that,
their Rock of Gibraltar. He was there from 84 until 97. But the thing is, times change and things change. And the bottom line is, I don't care how long you're with the company. It happens every day in the real world that people get laid off. The bottom line is, if you're being told, and a belt that's given to you, you didn't win the belt. This is not boxing. This is not the World Series. This is not the
boxing,
NFL.
Maybe. Well, let's not discuss boxing sometimes.
Well, yeah. Well, assuming that boxing is actually legitimate, this is not boxing. You know. So when you're sitting here talking about things like that, these guys are actually winning a championship. You're not saying, okay, lose something that you fought hard to win. No, this is something that was given to you. And to not want to lose something that was given to you is like losing a spot that you really don't hold.
But in essence, you worked your butt off to get to that position, though. You've worked hard, you've said yes, 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 yes to everything. And, I mean, to go down like that in front of a home crowd is pretty embarrassing family-wise, and also to yourself in general.
Well, when you sit there, though, and you think of what happened with Medusa, and for those who don't know, I'll give you a quick history lesson. Medusa left the WWF with the women's championship of the company and went to Nitro and threw the belt in the trash. And everybody in the WWF still was at the time, I can't say those letters on WWE programming today, they are not, they all suspected that Bret was going to take the WWE World Heavyweight title, walk on Nitro, and throw it in the trash. And, of course, that didn't happen, and Bret insists it would not have happened. Bret just wanted to lose the next night on Raw to Shawn Michaels. Now, personally, how do you make that guarantee? He's no longer under contract after Survivor Series. Personally, I can't say that I would have done things differently than HBK and McMahon did.
Now, again, I don't know if we'll ever have the full story behind this, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Bret said it wasn't about losing a match or dropping a belt. It was about the professional etiquette in which it was done. If you were to say immediately strip him of the title after Survivor Series, have some kind of, it seems to be a popular thing. This year we've already had 2 pay-per-views end in a DQ. Why not 8 years ago could we at least have a pay-per-view end in a disqualification or some extenuating circumstances? It didn't matter that he was beaten up in front of his, in front of that home crowd. Jim Ross has it happen to him every time he's on TV, even though he's not now.
It's not pretty
Ric
hilarious.
Flair, when he's in, Ric Flair is probably the only guy who doesn't have it happen to him, and he even still does. It's a matter of what Bret Hart, in his mind, and everybody knew this of Bret. Bret wasn't going to go do that to somebody. Bret and Vince were on a good working relationship, even though the contract was expiring and he decided to pursue other options. Everybody knew that, and it seemed now more like a controversy that maybe Bret was originally given away to WCW as if to say, you're not going to be able to manage this guy right. If you want him for that money or that, length of period of time, go ahead. I guarantee you're going to regret what you do with him.
The bottom line is if you read Shawn Michaels' book, and that's what he came on to promote, so I keep wanting to tell people, do pick that book up. It's a great read. There's more than just Montreal. But still talking about that, the bottom line is you're told that you're going to lose a match. You're no longer under contract. You're in a ratings war at the time with WCW. You cannot afford to let your World Heavyweight title belt walk over to the opposing company and get thrown in the trash can and devalued.
It's a business decision. I mean, after that, we had the Attitude Era rushed in, very, very successfully ushered in.
Right. And that ignited it. That really ignited it.
And that was the main thing. I mean, kind of the Bret Hart turning heel was sort of the setup for it, and the execution went out brilliantly in terms of a business view of it.
Right. I mean, that brought everything that was real to the forefront. Even today, we still see little elements of reality in what's going on. It was the beginning of what became the reality TV genre. That's what the Attitude Era was. It was no more cartoonish gimmicks like Doink the Clown and the Goon. Instead, it was all reality. And we can all thank Vince Russo, who, by the way, will join us next week on the program.
Well, now, hold on just a second. If you go with that theory, then why did it have to be... Let me just ask you. Why did Bret have to lose by his own maneuver?
Shock value.
I mean, is that... I'm not saying that him losing the belt was going to change his attitude or his opinion.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're going to... Vince made that very clear statement. You have it memorized if you've seen it enough times. I have no sympathy for a wrestling traditionalist. I cannot talk. Not doing the right thing for the business that made him. The business may have made him, but at the same time, Bret Hart made himself. So to say that, Vince did screw Bret, and Shawn Michaels screwed Bret, and Earl Hebner screwed Bret. All of these people could screw Bret, but at the same time, Bret didn't deserve it. You can screw him, but then you can really stick it in there and say to you,
well, that's what they did, and that's kind of the whole... driving that knife into the back just a little bit further with the sharpshooter. And I don't have a problem with it. I thought that was the adequate way to go. Look at the tremendous program we got after that from this incident. I mean, a year later, The Rock turns heel by using the sharpshooter and winning a screwjob finish in a wonderfully booked gimmick. This was really the changing of the business with the whole Bret Hart incident. And to be honest with you, you know what? You work for a company for that long, you're leaving, you're going to go get more money at another company. You do what your employer tells you to do. I don't care if he tells you to go clean up the toilets or whatever. You do what you're told to do. Bret should have done the job.
And not punch your boss in the face.
Well, that part I kind of accept.
Yeah, well, on that note now, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back.
In just a moment, we're going to discuss last night's SmackDown special right here on the Wrestling Epicenter here on The Blaze, 1260 a.m.
It's Vader time.
It was Vader time in 2009 when the Wrestling Epicenter welcomed Big Van Vader to our show.
Yeah, he did. He picked the ear up off the ring and carried it to the back where I believe Chuck was fully with it. Something else to do, but they never reattached it. That he has that long hair, so you don't really see it. But they never reattached the ear, so it looks pretty ugly.
This sensational interview is available in our extensive archives at interactivewrestlingradio.com and wrestlingepicenter.com.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Epicenter with Brendon, Brooks, Benya, and the one and only James Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to discuss what happened last night on SmackDown. We had Booker T, Chris Benoit, and, of course, the Rey Mysterio, Big Show Max.
Very special broadcast on the UPN network for the... Usually it's taped on Tuesday nights, so they had a live broadcast last night. It was a bit short for my liking. It was only an hour long, and we got 2 matches out of that. We got a lot to discuss. Only 15 minutes to do it in, so we're going to make it real quick, okay, guys? So why don't we hit the first match, which was match number 2 in the Best of 7 series, as Chris Benoit was defeated for the second time in a row by Booker T. Booker T now has a 2-0 lead in the Best of 7 series.
Now, of course, the age-old question is, do we still care that this is still going to go on?
Right, and we asked that question a little bit earlier. We saw the feud happen in 1998 in World Championship Wrestling. That was a phenomenal feud. I'm not sure that people still care, and we discussed that a little bit earlier. What do you think, Ben?
The delivery of this feud alone is kind of really taking away from it. It's taking away from the actual wrestlers doing what they do best and wrestle and perform, and it's putting the spotlight on screw jobs and dusty finishes.
Right.
It just doesn't seem to be fair, and at this point, Booker T going up 2-0, it's almost like they're trying to keep the fans on the edge of their seats, but at the same time, it's going to go 7.
It's probably going to go 7. That's the way it usually goes in wrestling. I rarely ever remember anything that was going to be a challenge not going to that 7th game. You know why? Because wrestling is entertainment and not a sport, and that's how you get the most drama out of it.
You gotta squeeze 7 games out of that.
Yeah.
And so we'll most likely see eventually a Game 7 between
Chris
Booker T
Benoit
and-
coming back. Yeah, Chris Benoit's going to win. He's probably going to go down 3-0 and then come back to win the next 3. And we'll see what happens in match number 7. The next match on the card and the second and main event of the evening was the Giant versus Little Man. I can't say the M word, can I?
Rey Mysterio? Yeah.
Yeah, David versus Goliath, I guess you could say. It was the Big Show against Rey Mysterio Jr.
Well, the Big Show and Rey Mysterio Jr., they did this 2 years ago, and it was meant to be incredibly violent and shocking when the Big Show did an unprotected stretcher, just ramming Rey Mysterio into the ring post, letting him fall, total blatant disregard, an unprotected bump, a very dangerous bump for Mysterio to take. God knows what could have happened to him had he landed really hard and hurt himself. But they're doing it this time with the whole Raw versus SmackDown angle and the fact that Mysterio was the one who got the pin on the Big Show.
That's a great point to make, too.
And I'm not really exactly sure if that's the best way to go, because if you look at it, Mysterio did get the pin, yes, and they tried to make it out because Big Show had been given a finisher from JBL and from Randy Orton and from Mysterio himself a number of times.
We were counting 6 that night?
I believe it was 6 total.
Yes, he got his ass handed to him.
Including the West Coast Pop.
Right.
Now, given that, the West Coast Pop was what eventually finished off the Big Show, because Big Show just kept getting back up and he was supposed to be superhuman. It's really hard to fathom that that was what kept him down.
Right.
And that's how this rivalry is going to be.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure how long the rivalry will last, I should say. We saw Big Show confront Triple H on Raw, so it looks like they're going to go for a Triple H versus Big Show feud with Big Show playing the babyface in that feud. But I would say in this feud, almost because of just logistics, Big Show's the heel just because he's so much bigger, and we all want to cheer for the underdog.
I mean, so he's a little guy. You can't go against a little guy in this situation.
Right. You can't make him the face. You can't cheer for the big guy against the little guy in the fight. You're always cheer for the little guy.
You know, I've
It's
always
just human psychology.
I've wanted to see if the WWE can actually capitalize on the old school Lucha Libre matches, and it looks like they haven't at all. You just gotta have this matches with Rey Mysterio versus Big Show, David versus Goliath, but really it's just gonna kind of be somewhat subpar, I think, in the end. Why not fully utilize Lucha Libre? You know,
you have to put on a sell that the fans want to see. Now, granted, it sounds really sadistic that the fans would want to see a 7-foot-tall monster wrap his huge hands around Rey Mysterio's scrawny little neck, throw him about comically, and then beat him. But at the same time, that's kind of predictable, isn't it?
I mean, we all know the ending of this match. It's most likely going to end with Mysterio winning because he's a little guy, he's the underdog. He'll end either in a DQ or either win and just with a run-in or interference.
Right, and that's what we saw last night. It was interference by Kane came in. It was interference with Kane, so it appeared that Big Show needed help to beat the little guy, and of course the ending of the match was a disqualification. We had a no contest, and all hell broke loose after that. The Undertaker came out, and now it appears we're going to see a continuation of Randy Orton and The Undertaker. The only question I have for you guys is, what's next for these guys? We've seen a casket match already. What gimmick match can they possibly give?
Well, they
Randy
can't
Orton?
bury him.
Right.
Well, it looks like right now, at least the biggest rumor, and it seems like the most appropriate setting, you think about the gimmick matches that The Undertaker wrestles in, and he was the first one in a Buried Alive match. He was the first one in an Inferno match, which is far too dangerous to put someone like Randy Orton, who is expected to be at WrestleMania, in the main event. It's far too dangerous to put someone like him in that match. Most likely what you're going to see is the one other match The Undertaker was the first in, and that was Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell.
Wow.
Hell in a Cell, that'd be like a good way to end it. Of course, you'll never see, Orton wrapped in a body bag like he used to do back in the day.
That's too grim, and right now they want to stay. I would think that they would want to stay as far away from anything that has to do with death.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably not the exact
Mainly
best
because of
way.
the Eddie Guerrero thing, and also because of the whole thing with Eugene getting sent home. I mean, it's not a good sign if you have to send wrestlers home for taking too many of their pills,
Right.
and they're passed out in an airport, and they don't
And
know
that
what's going
happens
on.
just days after the Eddie Guerrero incident where Eddie Guerrero passed away. I mean, we're sitting in a situation here where Eugene is just an idiot. How could you still be taking your drugs overseas and passing out in an airport just days after you saw everybody in the company pouring their hearts out with the death of Eddie Guerrero? Next week, we're going to be joined by Vince Russo. I did this interview just a couple weeks ago, and Vince has an idea that's basically going to be wrestling's version of a union. And basically, it's going to protect these guys from taking the pills or becoming addicted to the pills that Eugene was sent home for taking. And I think that's absolutely something necessary. But going back to The Undertaker and Randy Orton, I think that we might have to see a Hell in a Cell match, but will these guys be able to deliver the kind of hype that has surrounded the Hell in a Cell, given the fact that neither one of these guys is going to take the kind of sick bump that Mick Foley took back at King of the Ring 1998?
I really don't think you'll ever see a match quite like that again, nor will you actually see the two of them carry a decent Hell in the Cell match. I mean, those matches have always been about really, really big guy, semi-small guy like Shawn Michaels in Hell in the Cell. That was an excellent match.
I actually think that one was better than the Mick Foley match, because that match was 45 minutes of brutality as opposed to two huge bumps.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, you just brought up, you're saying that Mankind and Shawn Michaels, their Hell in a Cell matches, were probably the two best. Who did they fight against in those matches? It was The Undertaker.
Absolutely.
Undertaker about 10 years ago, though.
Well, he can... The question is, can Undertaker still pull it off? And you got to figure that this is also not coming in the middle of the year like it was for King of the Ring 98 between Mankind and The Undertaker, and it's not coming in October when Michaels will have enough time to heal in turn for WrestleMania. This is literally coming at crunch time. Are you really willing to take that risk to injure one of the two guys who The Undertaker will be at WrestleMania to defend his undefeated streak.
Of course.
Randy Orton will be at WrestleMania probably to fight in the world title scenario if Batista is healthy and ready to go. I mean,
my prediction is just basically Orton's going to be basically either pin Undertaker or just basically there'll be a DQ match or something. Someone's going to come in and cause Orton to win the match.
It's pretty good to see that they're keeping Randy Orton away from the world title for the time being. I personally don't think Randy's caught up to his old steam about a year ago, so he's going to have to probably beat The Undertaker one more time and put him out for even longer. And with that, I think he will recapture some of the steam that he has. One last thing before we go, guys. Let me ask you, do you think that we're going to see a continuation of the Raw versus SmackDown feud?
I hope not.
You hope not, really?
I just think they need to consolidate the titles, maybe cut the fat a little bit, and just sort of mush them all together like it used to be.
Really?
I mean, it gets, coming from a fan who watches, vicariously every now and then, in and out, it's confusing to watch, like, okay, we have one title, we have one World Heavyweight Champion, we have a WWE Champion. I mean, it's like, it's too confusing for the outside fan to really get what's going on, and the titles somewhat lose their prestige, they lose their edge that they once had when you only had a few of them.
And that's also a problem that I think that we're facing, is how do the fans follow it when they're not all wearing uniforms and we don't know who's on whose side? Like, unless you're a real wrestling fan and you know that Big Show's a WWE Raw guy and Rey Mysterio's a WWE SmackDown guy, how do you know what brand they're a member of?
The question seems to be, can WWE continue? Will they continue? I'm sure they want to continue, but will they be able to? You've got to take a lot of factors into account right now. It's getting them some ratings bumps. Now, that can be coincidental to the fact that there's some downtime in other programs at this point in the year. Eddie Guerrero's death, unfortunately, gave Raw, fortunately and unfortunately, gave Raw its highest number of the year ratings-wise. I believe it was a 4.5, which was higher than Homecoming.
Right.
And that was a huge thing. Can they continue? SmackDown, their contract is up in less than a year right now with UPN. Where are they going to put that brand? At the same time, with all the roster cuts they've made, a lot of people complain that there's just not enough established stars to get them over. if they were to end it, I don't think it would be by their choice. I think it would be just because they hit a brick wall, and, all good things or bad must come to an end.
It makes a great video game. It makes a great video game, basically. I mean, you were just telling me you had the newest Raw
Yeah, I
vs.
think
SmackDown
next
game.
week you're actually going to do a little segment about this video game and how wonderful you think it turned out.
And I will be doing that. It is right now one of the holiday games to get. I mean, obviously the Xbox 360 dominating things, but SmackDown vs. Raw 06 is the most in-depth wrestling video game ever.
Wow.
By far. I mean, imagine Madden on a wrestling scale. That's what you're getting with this game. At the same time, there's a really important factor of the gameplay, which kind of took a hit last year when they literally tried to emulate Madden with chop fights that seemed like you were kicking a field goal. This year, wrestling fans will know this is the best wrestling game quite possibly ever, and if not, it's the best since No Mercy on the N64.
Yes, that was an awesome game.
And I think that we need to sit back and take a little bow to the WWE marketing department for cross-marketing their video games with the programming. Raw vs. SmackDown is the video game, and what are we seeing on WWE TV? Raw vs. SmackDown in the main event of Survivor Series. They're marketing themselves very well. That's something that many people don't remember or don't understand about why they had WWE guys appearing on an ECW pay-per-view. They needed to promote it the best they possibly could to get as many sales as they can. WWE video games sell phenomenally. If I'm not mistaken, it was one of the top 10 games out there for last month, and, it's not a coincidence.
Well, I'll be sure to pick it up, but I only have an Xbox, so one day they'll do that. For right now, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Right here on The Blaze, 1260 AM.
This is Ron Simmons, and you're listening to The Blaze, 1260 AM.
That's all for the Wrestling Epicenter for James Walsh, Ben Benya. This is Brendon Brooks saying so long. Stay tuned for Teal. Then after that, the Peanut Gallery on The Blaze, 1260 AM next week. Vince Russo. Thanks, guys, for listening.